There has long been overwhelming evidence that Joe and Hunter Biden's financial lives are not separate at all, but deeply intertwined. On Hunter Biden's laptop, there's a suggestion that the two of them even at one point shared a bank account.
So Hunter Biden will be pleading guilty and striking a deal for federal tax offenses and a separate gun charge deal, and he'll likely avoid jail time, of course. I'm gonna play Tucker Carlson's reaction on Twitter. Since Fox News deplatformed him, I think it's good to support those who've been banished for being right more than they've been wrong. And I'll react to the Hunter Biden case as well and what Tucker's saying. Hope you enjoyed this show. God bless. Dream Rare Podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from our...
What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good day. Welcome to today's show. So Hunter Biden is going to plead guilty on counts, I believe, of federal tax evasion of some sort and a gun charge. And Tucker Carlson put out his new episode on Twitter since it's not on Fox News and he's doing it independently. I figured I'd play a few clips from it and react because he does a pretty good job summarizing what's going on to an extent. So let's get into that, and then I'll give my opinion and perspective after. Here we go.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This spring, word began to circulate in Washington that the House Oversight Committee, under its new chairman, Congressman Jamie Comer, had discovered criminal behavior after reviewing thousands of pages of the Biden family's bank records. Now, publicly, to the extent they responded at all, the White House dismissed the investigation as, of course, politically motivated. In any case, irrelevant. Hunter Biden was an adult, so his business dealings had nothing at all to do with his father, in this case, the President of the United States. But in private, everybody understood it wasn't quite that simple. There has long been overwhelming evidence that Joe and Hunter Biden's financial lives are not separate at all, but deeply intertwined. On Hunter Biden's laptop, there's a suggestion that the two of them even at one point shared a bank account. And of course, Hunter Biden wrote himself that he kicked back cash from his foreign business deals to his father. He wrote that bitterly. So the Oversight Committee's investigation was potentially a disaster for the White House, a scandal, possibly even the prelude to criminal charges. So in order to get ahead of all of that, Joe Biden's handlers did the one thing they could do. They set up an MSNBC interview to preemptively whitewash whatever Jamie Comer might find. Here's the result of that. This aired on May 5th.
Sir, there is something personal that's affecting you. Your son, while there's no ties to you, could be charged by your Department of Justice. How will that impact your presidency?
First of all, my son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him. And it impacts my presidency by making me feel proud of him.
Okay, time for the master class for free. You can audit it. Here it goes. Sir, showing appropriate respect, says the shill, there is something personal that's affecting you. Note the wording. Personal, not of public concern, nothing law enforcement might be interested in, but personal, a sad family tragedy. That's the framing. And then this, a sentence choreographed to the letter. Your son, while there's no ties to you, could be charged by your Department of Justice. Got that? Well, there's no tie to you. So the answer is, in fact, in the question. Whatever Hunter Biden goes down for, and we know he is going to be charged because MSNBC said so, but when that happens, that's Hunter's problem. It's got nothing to do with Joe Biden. Rest easy, America. 5 days later, the Oversight Committee released its findings, and they were in fact devastating. Quote, bank records show the Biden family, their business associates, and their companies, their many companies, received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their related companies, the committee wrote. Investigators had, quote, identified payments to Biden family members from foreign companies while Joe Biden served as vice president and after he left public office.
So if you want to watch the full thing, it's on Tucker's Twitter. I'm going to play 3 clips from it. I don't have the whole entire thing. I just chose 3 clips that I thought were interesting. I guess I wish sometimes that I could fit in and I thought that Republicans cared or like Trump was going to fight the deep state. Sometimes I really wish I still felt like that so I could fit in and be like angry today and be like, oh, double standards, or I don't know, like Jim Jordan's going to yell and, Trump's going to tweet or True Social in all caps and, Trumpy influencers are going to sell like Hunter smokes crack t-shirts, and then they're going to like yell at Thomas Massey. Like, I feel like it's political theater now, personally. And I think that when people go with their morals and their values and their instincts, they don't need politicians to get stuff done, whether it be a boycott or a lot of this pushback against big pharma that's going on Twitter has nothing to do with politics. It's just like people are going with their instinct. To me, at this point, I feel like both parties are controlled opposition. It's like the left is just there to make liberals and progressives and people that don't like conservatives think that there's people fighting for them. You know, they'll give them marijuana like legalization or like a George Floyd bill and whatever they got to do to keep these people to think that they're really fighting the right, or you can abort your baby up until birth, or God knows what people want to do anymore. Like a heartbeat's not a good line in the sand. So, you know, Gavin Newsom will let you do it like 15 weeks out. It's like, but they're not doing anything. They're not really, you know, fighting the banks or big pharma or the lobbyists. Their foreign policy is terrible. Democrats are the party of even more war than Republicans. It used to be the reverse. Like liberals used to be against the wars, and were like peaceniks. Now the Democratic Party is probably filled with bigger neocons and war hawks than Republicans are. And the people that worship Democrats don't even realize, because they just hate the other side. It's like Democrats are controlled opposition for liberals. To me, the Republican Party, even the Trump movement, I know people think is everything but the movement of Trump. That's what you think. I don't think so. I wish I did so I could fit in. I feel like the whole thing is controlled opposition. Like, yeah, the Democrats have double standards. Yes, they're softballing Hunter Biden. Yes, they're letting him off the hook for something they'd never let off Don Jr. We know all the obvious talking points. And before I play the next clip, my thing is this. Are Republicans going to do anything? Is Trump going to do anything? Did he do anything? The answer to me is no. But people like in the Republican Party to make excuses for it. So it just keeps continuing, because it's like, I don't know, Tom and Jerry for adults, like a theater of like, I almost got him. And, you know, people are angry and outraged. And now they're mad at Ron Paul and Thomas Massey. Like that's going to solve the problem. It's just like a big emotional, like Kardashian show for the masses, where Trump, Biden, DeSantis, you know, they're all beholden to somebody. There's banks with more power. BlackRock is going to go over to Ukraine and rebuild it and get $500 billion. Big coincidence there, but don't even think about why that's happening or how that's happening, or else they'll accuse you of hate speech while they, you know, run you in circles around the Trump arrest or the Hunter Biden thing. I mean, obviously everyone knows what was going on with Joe Biden. Everybody sees it, but I guess the difference between me and maybe some other people at this point is I'm not convinced that the Republican Party even cares, and I'm not convinced that Trump and his whole ilk is anything but just a Tasmanian devil show to, you know, jack up conservatives and keep leading them into traps. I would love to think that someone was going to come along and actually cared about foreign influence in politics. I just don't see it. And feel free to agree to disagree. I know people love to like put their faith and hope in politicians, and, you know, I get it. I understand my opinion's unpopular, but I guess it's just like, yeah, I get the gist of it. Hunter Biden did things and, you know, nothing's getting done. I guess the difference before I play the next clip is Republicans had power for 4 years and didn't do anything. And they're now convincing their base that they just made mistakes, or they got tricked, or Jared Kushner fooled them and they didn't know, and Bill Barr was a mistake. Like, it's this big drama show that's equivalent to like a soap opera for older women. Like, watch the soap opera and like believe. And it's fun to watch soap operas or whatever, but this is politics. This is real life. And, you know, I feel like Trump and the Republicans are convincing people like, we'll do it next time. We just haven't for 30 years, but like next, we just didn't know. You didn't know. You didn't know that if you said you were going to lock up your enemies and you didn't, that they were going to come for you. You didn't know the Democrats had double standards. You didn't know playing into their hands was going to lead to this. Like, I can't care less about this stuff, because it's like, we're the double standards of the left. Like, yes, they have double standards and they get away with it, and you do nothing and you did nothing, and you know, but this time you will, maybe, but I just could care less personally. Tucker does a great job kind of explaining the ins and outs of it, though. That's why I'm going to play him. So here's the second clip. I got 3, so here it is.
So actually there was something there. It was a scandal. Racketeering, money laundering, wire fraud. Those are some of the crimes the Bidens seem to have committed, in addition, of course, to selling out the United States for cash. So what would happen to them? Well, Donald Trump had an idea, quote, "They'll hit Hunter with something small to make their strike on me look fair." Trump wrote that about 2 weeks ago, and it turned out those were prescient words. This morning, Hunter Biden pleaded guilty to pretty much nothing. Biden pled to 2 misdemeanor tax evasion charges, then entered a diversion on a federal gun charge. That's it. As far as Merrick Garland's Justice Department is concerned, Hunter Biden is done. There was no pre-dawn raid carried live simultaneously on CNN. There was no perp walk, no handcuffs, no press conference. Above all, there was no felony. Hunter Biden, who broke federal gun laws, can still carry a gun. It's like it all never happened. In fact, the Justice Department just baptized Hunter Biden, a lifetime of sins washed away in an instant. It was a secular miracle. Most miraculous of all, Hunter Biden somehow escaped a FARA charge. FARA is the Foreign Agent Registration Act, and it is exactly what its name suggests. Under federal law, if you are acting as an agent of a foreign nation in Washington, you are required to register with our government to let everybody know. Well, for decades, pretty much nobody in Washington did register under FARA, and precisely no one was ever prosecuted for it. No one. But starting several years ago, the Justice Department began sending people to prison on FARA violations. The official explanation was, we're cracking down on foreign influence in Washington. And of course, privately, everyone in Washington laughed. They knew that was absurd. In fact, it's the opposite of the truth. Foreign powers have never had more power in Washington. Their agents are everywhere, in every federal agency and throughout business, down to and including in executive positions at various social media companies. The Biden administration knows all of this, and it's not a problem. In fact, it's their policy. From the administration's perspective, the concerns and the demands of, say, the Chinese government, or particularly the Ukrainian government, are far more important than the needs of American voters. We're cracking down on foreign influence. Please. The point, the only point of enforcing FARA, after decades of ignoring it, is to harass and imprison high-profile political opponents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know to what extent foreign influence came into American politics. I'm not that well studied to is it at its max peak? Has it always been there? I'm not really sure, but obviously, as much as people on the right say China, 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 obviously China has influence. We do trade with China. People are not stopping the trade. Both our economies rely on each other. I think with the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden stuff, that stuff seems pretty clear that there seemed to be some sort of pay to play, and that's what people do. Saudi Arabia, obviously, they have a lot of money. They're starting to challenge the PGA. I think they just struck a deal with a lot of Saudi money. Israel, you're not even allowed to talk about. If you even suggest that Israel has any sort of influence over American politicians, which they obviously do factually, you'll be called an anti-Semite from the left and the right. And then they'll try to throw Thomas Massie out of the party because he's the only one who constantly votes against that lobby. So they have to pretend like he's working for another country when in reality, the people accusing him of that probably are, or at least have, loyalties, which you also can't talk about, or else they'll say it's hate speech. So, I mean, yeah, there's foreign influence in America. The biggest ones you're not allowed to talk about, or they'll say it's hate speech in both parties. And, I guess certain people are above the law. It is what it is. Joe Biden's son is not you, so he gets away with it. Jeffrey Epstein, nobody, who's really still talking about that? Who's running on that? Is Trump or DeSantis saying, if I get back into office, I'm going to really get to the bottom of the Epstein situation? Did DeSantis say that? I didn't hear it. Did Trump say it? I didn't hear it. Did RFK say it? I didn't hear it. Does Biden care? Obviously not. I just think personally, and I know this is going to bother people because they're so invested in the soap opera, I think they're just putting on a show for you. I really do. I think the left is putting on a show for their base. I think Trump's putting on a show for his base. And I think it's a giant show trial and a giant show controlled opposition, basically little subplot where it's oh, the Bidens versus the Trumps and who's going to get arrested. And the real root level stuff that actually matters that both parties are in on that Trump didn't do anything about. He'll convince you someone's oh, it's Bill Barr. It's you think Trump didn't hire him or something, or, look, Google Barr Epstein and you'll find two things: the Barr Epstein virus, which is the name of the virus, and the connections of Bill Barr and Epstein. That's that was known before, but Trump cares now. It's a show. I mean, people get mad when I say this, but they just put on show drama WWE plots for the masses, and people just don't understand. It's yeah, the Biden family is above the law. They're not going to get charged the same way you would. The Epstein case, no one cares about, and nobody's running on the platform of solving that mystery because they all don't care, because they probably know whoever he was working for is also above the law, and they don't want to really, shake that coconut tree per se. So there's going to be this type of stuff like outrage and, oh, it's Thomas Massey's fault. And then people are going to be like, oh, it's like, you think it's that's the big like MAGA thing now is like, let's kick Thomas Massey out of the party. He's one of the only good people there. That you think that's going to solve all your problems? You're mad at him for voting no on a censure, fine based on the Constitution, but you're not mad at the guy who gave $18 billion to Big Pharma to scam you. Like there's no priorities in politics because people just act emotional. They just like hate the other side. And, the obvious point is, Hunter Biden's getting a sweetheart deal. I guess the difference is, before I play the third clip, between me and other people think like, oh, he's getting a sweetheart deal because of the left and the right really care. And like, I don't see it that way. I see it as like the right had power, the right empowered Democrats, the right hired their enemies and probably their friends. They're just putting on a show for you. The right failed. The right ended up doing socialism for Big Pharma. The right sold their base out. Nobody cares on the right because as long as you give the right a certain character that can convince them that it was a mistake or you got fooled, they'll just double down and make excuses for things they don't believe or create plots that aren't real. So I don't see it as like, oh, the left did all this and the right's really going to do it right. It's like they didn't do anything. They don't care. It's like they're just there to lose. They're just there to put on a show that's realistic enough for people to believe it, but not strategic enough to actually solve the problems. And if anyone ever comes around that does have the problems, I don't even think the base is ready for that person because they're so invested in the like false paradigm Trump Biden plot that it's just like people can't think straight anymore. But if you really believe that Republicans care and like Trump's really going to stick it to him this time, I mean, that's fine. Agree to disagree. It's like, how could I possibly be outraged when the people that are trying to convince me that they're like ready to, fight the double standards, they already didn't do that. It's like, and they take no accountability for all the mistakes they made or all the swamp that they hired. It's like so obvious to me that it's a WWE plot, but I don't know. Some people love it. So I don't want to ruin your, I don't want to ruin your cartoon show. But here's Tucker, the final statement that he has. Watch the full thing on Twitter. He does a good job of just covering this story.
So don't get any ideas about cheating on your taxes or violating federal gun laws unless you want to celebrate next year's Father's Day through the glass in the visitor's room. The rules definitely apply to you, including rules you don't yet know exist. But there is also a deeper lesson here, a more disturbing one. What we're watching through Hunter Biden's life and through the Biden administration, now entering its third year, is the total inversion of virtue. What was once considered admirable is now derided as stupid, if not racist. That would include achievement, intelligence, honesty, self-control, humility. Those are features of the old America. Those were yesterday's virtues. They are gone. In their place, all that we once considered contemptible and repulsive, we're told to worship that now. Here's a small example, but we think a revealing one. In addition to his many other sins, Joe Biden has hired what has to be the single dumbest, nastiest, most dishonest, most ridiculous person he could possibly find for the very public position of White House press secretary. There's a point to it, of course. It was a humiliation exercise. It was designed to degrade the country and dispirit the rest of us. That's the White House press secretary? Shut up! But here's the thing. The White House press secretary herself has no idea why she's in the job. She thinks she's amazing. Here she is in a clip we just saw.
A year in this role, there's been a couple of things that has made me incredibly proud. Many things that made me incredibly proud to be at that podium during this historic moment. Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure, and I certainly walk in history every day.
I'm a historic figure? Imagine saying that. I'm a historic figure, but she does. And she says it in a burst of sincere self-congratulation, marked by her signature bad grammar. Illiterate, but proud. Of course she's proud. Karine Jean-Pierre is now a historic figure, just like Hunter Biden is now an important artist. It makes you feel stupid for going to work.
Younger people say the news is full of lies.
In Kennedy's motorcade,
239 people cell the death of Jeffrey Epstein.
She said, I'm a historic figure. I walk in history every day. I mean, technically, she's not wrong. Like, you are a part of history if you're the press secretary, but it's funny because with Jen Psaki, what was that her name? The little redhead, like, demon lady. She was like just very evil, in my opinion. Karine Jean-Pierre, I feel like isn't as evil. Like, I get better vibes from her, but she's just not like very bright or good at the job, but less evil. I like her better because I'd rather listen to her stumble. You know what? Karine Jean-Pierre is perfect for the job because Joe Biden stumbles a lot and she stumbles a lot. So you're supposed to be representing the president. So she does actually a really good job to represent Biden. If she were just well-spoken, it wouldn't make sense. It's like, you know, have some respect for the president. You got to be more like him. So she's actually perfect for the job. But, you know, Tucker, check out his show on Twitter. I think it's cool that he's just putting it out there and letting people cover it. And yeah, I mean, I think he did a solid job. I watched the whole 15 or 12-minute segment. It's just like, I don't know. There's only so much I could really care at this point. Like I said, sometimes I wish I still bought into it where I could be like really upset all the time. Like, it's Thomas Massie, it's Ron Paul, it's Hunter Biden. It's like, yeah, I get it. Biden sucks. He scams people. They don't do anything. I'm convinced at this point that politicians are basically just there to waste people's time and make you angry or complacent. Like, for example, if you look at the recent backlash against Big Pharma and Peter Hotez, and I did a whole video on it, there's a lot of light coming to fruition from, or I don't even know if I said that properly, but you get what I'm saying, around the Big Pharma scam. And that's not being done. I mean, RFK is somewhat leading it because he did a podcast, but RFK, for a long time, he wasn't a politician and he was just like a vaccine safety, I would say activist. And, it's not being led by Trump. It's not really being led by DeSantis. It's people sticking to what they believe and just pushing back against the establishment without like someone telling them what to do. Whereas, when people get too attached to Biden or too attached to Trump, to me, it does one of two things. It makes people lazy or complacent or angry. And I just don't see politicians at this point, until I could be proven wrong. There's some people who do stuff. There's some policy that gets passed, but they almost just block people from doing anything and waste people's time. For an example, we've talked about this a bunch, but today I posted, I don't even remember what I posted, but every day, the same story. Someone says to me, "You don't understand, Anomaly. Operation Warp Speed was a sting operation." So they believe it was like a secret sting operation that you can't see. You just got to believe. Like, this is how far gone a lot of people that worship Trump are. And I'm not hating. It's just like, if Hillary Clinton did Operation Warp Speed, you'd be standing with me saying this is corrupt. If Mitt Romney did it, you'd be standing with me. But if Donald Trump does it, you're so obsessed with him that you have to brainwash yourself into thinking it's like a, episode of like CSI or whatever. And it's a secret sting. It's not a secret sting operation, but that's what politicians do. They just destroy your ability to think critically or stand up for yourself. And they either make you complacent, like that guy's now complacent because he believes in that guy, or angry at something that doesn't really matter that much. So, I have faith in people, but if people worship God and stick to their morals and values and believe in the Constitution and their family and their country more than they believe in loving or hating Biden or Trump or Hunter Biden, I believe Hunter Biden's guilty. I think that they're giving him a sweetheart deal that is the easiest path for him to not face some other stuff he did. I think that the Trump trial is basically just a year distraction, so it controls the narrative of the primaries and people can't actually challenge their politicians to be better. It just kind of creates this victim, hero, villain narrative, which the media loves to profit off of and also use as a way to control what you're able to talk about and what you're not able to talk about. So, I feel like people get so emotional over these things on all sides that it really just blocks people from doing anything. They get angry, emotional, or complacent. And when people drop, you could vote, you could support somebody, but when you drop the total hate or obsession over a political figure, more, in my view, would get done in this country. I think most people have the right instinct. They're just constantly being like, circus chase. And I'm just going to end on this note. I'm keeping this one brief. I agree with most of what Tucker Carlson said, that they're giving Hunter a sweetheart deal. I agree with what Trump is probably going to scream on True Social, that, this is going to make it look like they're nonpartisan when they go after him for stuff that they probably wouldn't go after Hillary for. I agree with all of these things. Like, that's the most generic take. If I were just Cat Turd or one of these accounts that just like spews the same 5 things on loop, yeah, I agree with all that. I agree with these people. But the difference is, I just don't believe that the opposition to Joe Biden is real. I don't. I think that the movement's become controlled opposition, and I'm not even accusing people of being paid off. I just think that if you're so obsessed with a character that you're more mad at Thomas Massie than you are at Donald Trump, or you want to kick Thomas Massie out for a censure vote that he's going to vote yes on eventually anyway, or, he just wants the fine out of it, but you're not mad that Trump printed $6 trillion and gave $18 billion to Big Pharma, then your movement's controlled opposition. Like, you're more inclined to kick the Ron Pauls of the world out of your party than you are to stand up against socialism and communism. It makes the whole movement controlled opposition. I don't think everyone's necessarily being bought. They're just being controlled by their ego, their emotion, their anger. And a lot of times it's like a lot of these people just got power for the first time in their lives, and they're just sporadically wielding it and throwing at people over a hissy fit. And I just don't see really much happening. And I think that when Republicans, if they get power, when they get power, the base has to say, you failed us last time. You dug your own grave. You gave the Democrats everything they wanted. You hired poorly. You did nothing about Hillary and Biden. You allowed them to basically bamboozle us and you. And when push came to shove, you guys were standing with the swamp during a lot of the COVID stuff. So you messed up. And if everybody in the base can say that to Republicans, there's a chance that they get in office and actually do something. But as long as people just keep buying hook, line, and sinker into these WWE like fantasy, fake plots of like political like Kardashian show, then the scam's just going to keep going in loop over and over and over. And I think that's the solution. It's simple. It's just, stand your ground. Don't like obsess or hate over somebody too much. Point out the double standards, the hypocrisy. But this is where I have a disconnect with a lot of the base. If you're following the person who's actually just not doing anything and running in circles and working with these people, you're not going to get to the destination you think you're going to get to. I know people want to get to that destination of accountability. I know that they think they're on the right path because they really believe these people, and that's your American right to disagree with me. But all the evidence is showing that that's not what's happening. And when you provide the evidence and reality, people default into like excuses or like fake plots like, oh, that's a sting operation. It's not a sting operation. You're just so brainwashed by the Republican Party that when they fail you and betray you and work for the big pharma donors and hire pharmacy lobbyists, you can't accept that you got scammed by your own side. So now you have to hatch this Comic-Con plot in your head that they're secretly doing. Yeah, there's all these sting operations, the mass watermark ballots. Remember when that was going to stop the deep state? It didn't, because it's not real. It's a fake controlled opposition plot to get a bunch of patriots and conservatives to stop actually doing something and get angry at the wrong people. So, I think that there's a chance that next time Republicans get in, they could do something. But it's only going to happen if the base stands firm and strong to what they believe and doesn't just get emotionally manipulated by certain influencers and leaders. And I think that, that's what people want to do as of now. So, Hunter Biden, I think it's obvious what he did. Does the Republican Party care? No. Are they going to admit they dropped the ball? No. It's up to the base and the voters to call them out, call them out and say, you failed last time. You didn't do anything last time. You set us up last time. You set yourself up last time. You set yourself up for failure. Take accountability and fix it last time. If the base, if the MAGA base, if the Trump base, if the conservative base, if the DeSantis base, the whoever base, if they can't do that and they just would rather hallucinate fake fairy tales and like worship politicians as if they're like a golden idol on a hill, then the scam is going to continue. Why wouldn't it? And you're not the victim. I know the victim consciousness is getting really common in Republican Party. They're like, we're the victim of this got stolen, it's the left, you're not the victim when the people you think are fighting them are actually working with them or failing to do anything about it. Like, this victim consciousness that has infiltrated the right has to go. Like, you're not a victim and you don't deserve things just because you want them. You have to accurately look at things and then make sure your politicians follow through and not just fail you over and over again. Because that's what happened last time. They failed. They set themselves up. They set you up. And as long as they could blame the left or find a Thomas Massie to point the finger at, people think that that's what's going to solve it. Like, that's crazy. If you think kicking Thomas Massie out of Congress is going to solve MAGA's problems, it's a controlled opposition movement now. He's one of these 10 people that has a soul in Congress, and you're going to kick him out of the party for who? For what? I disagree with some things that Ron Paul has done. Me and Rand Paul, what's his, the son? There's a lot of things that I don't like that Rand Paul did. There's a lot of things I like that he did do, but he's one of the better people in Senate. Just because I disagree with a few things Rand Paul does, you think I'm going to kick him out of Senate? No, he's one of the better people there. Just like Massey's one of the better House members. But that's the new MAGA movement, is just like aimless anger and emotion, and they're lashing out at people that are actually trying to save them, that tried to save them in 2020, that tried to use their power to stop the Republican Party from scamming you. And that's how I see it. I think that everybody knows the truth about Hunter Biden. It's just the reason nothing gets done is not because the left is so corrupt and the right is the innocent victim and Trump didn't know. It's because the Republican Party failed you. The Trump administration failed to get the job done on 15 different categories. They came back to bite them in the butt, and accountability needs to be had, or else it's just going to keep happening. It's not a hateful thing. I'm not spewing hate speech. It's just like, that's the reality of how things work. And if they get in the next time, they got to actually do something about it. Because if you say all these things and don't follow through on them, and when push comes to shove, you're aligning yourself with the big pharma swamp, you're retweeting John Kerry like Trump did. People don't even know this, but Donald Trump retweeted John Kerry, and the Uniparty tried to kick out Thomas Massie in 2020. When Thomas Massie took a stand against the CARES Act and explained it to people, John Kerry was against Thomas Massie, and Trump and Kerry were agreeing with each other, and Trump was retweeting the Uniparty. And now you have MAGA influencers trying to brainwash the base into thinking that the Uniparty loves Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie's been getting smeared for 15 years from all sides. I'm not saying he's perfect, but it's like, that's the MAGA movement now, is kicking him out of the party. The whole thing is controlled opposition. Trump's selling vaccines. People think it's a secret sting operation. They're kicking the constitutionalists out of the party. The whole movement's controlled opposition. I don't know if it's controlled off of ego. I don't know if it's anger, power hungry. I'm not saying everybody's like taking money to do it, but controlled opposition comes in many forms. It's not just like, oh, someone pays you to lie. You could be controlled by your ego. You could be controlled by fear, things like that. But that's how I see it. I think that Hunter did what he did. Everyone knows it. But the reason nothing gets done is not because the right wing is like so fooled, like they're so tricked. They didn't know Mitt Romney was bad. They just endorsed him. They didn't know, like, people believe that. I knew Mitt Romney was a liar when I was 12 years old. Like, you really think that Trump endorsed him in 2018 and he didn't know? Like, this is the party of like, they didn't know. They didn't know. They didn't. Well, do you want them to know? Do you want them to figure it, like, or are you going to keep incentivizing them to not know and get tricked? Like, the Republican Party is probably laughing hysterically at people. They're like, dude, look at these people. Look at our base. We keep slapping them in the face and they keep saying thank you. We keep failing them and they keep making excuses for us. We keep betraying them for the Uniparty and they hallucinate sting operations that don't exist. Like, they're probably laughing hysterically at you behind closed doors. Like, these people already forgot about the Epstein thing. No politicians even running on the, like, you think these people care so much? You think DeSantis cares so much or Trump cares so much? If you want to believe that, it's fine. But I just feel like it's like thinking that the stripper really cares about you when she just wants the money from you. So, agree to disagree if people want. But I do think there's a lot of great things happening in this country. I'm very optimistic. But the future is going to be one if people can separate themselves from idol worship of a politician and demand accountability from their party instead of making excuses. If it's just basic psychology and basic human nature. If the base is more interested in making excuses for failure than they are fixing it, failure is going to happen. And that's MAGA right now. You say something and people are more interested in making excuses for being betrayed than they are standing up against the betrayal. So just like telling a kid he gets a lollipop if he writes on the wall, there's a lot of incentive for Republicans to keep scamming you as long as their name is Donald Trump, because he has this like double standards in people. So, it's not to say that the Republican Party is great without him. It's not. It's terrible. But start to throw him in that basket of like, listen, you all kind of blew it last time. Hunter's getting away. They're charging you. They're not charging Hillary. But we all knew this was going to happen. That's why we were hoping that you actually did something about it instead of just ran around printing money for the Federal Reserve and selling vaccines. You can't print money and sell vaccines and expect to fight socialism. That is socialism. The Republican Party is a socialist party. They did more socialism in many ways than Democrats did in 2020, proudly. I'm not saying the Democrats aren't, but this idea that the Republicans are like really fighting Hunter Biden, and I feel like it's more a WWE clown show than it is a real opposition. I see it as theater. God bless you guys. Let me know if you disagree. If you're going to be angry and emotional and, you know, freak out every week over this stuff, if you do this for 2 years and nothing changes, consider not freaking out and getting angry and emotional over it, because maybe you're buying into something that's not real, and maybe you're driving yourself insane following a Tom and Jerry show when you don't realize that the people that are like claiming so hard to stick it to them are working with them. You know, just consider it, because I don't want you to be angry and emotional for 2 years. Yes, Hunter Biden has double standards and it's not right, but nothing will change if the opposition to the Bidens is working with them or doing very little to stop it. Someone said, I disagree. Wise up. Have fun being angry for the next 2 years. I'm sure it'll happen next time, Debbie. You know, he hired Bill Barr, but it's not his fault. It's the guy he hired's fault. Keep thinking that way. I'm sure it's going to work out. I'm sure you're not going to get scammed on loop forever. But you know, the answer's simple. If people want to pay attention and actually stand up for stuff, it's fine. If they want to like just lash out and feel like, you know, buy into like the most low level, you know, narrative for the masses that covers up like the real, you know, elites that are running the show, then you can do it. It's just like, it's not going to work. But have fun. God bless you guys. And thanks, Tucker, for that good take. Check him out on Twitter. Thanks for following me, folks. Have a beautiful summer. Enjoy yourself. Don't let the political theater and people get you down. It's a beautiful life. God is great. America's still a nice country, even with inflation, and it's a good summer. Enjoy it. Have fun. Do what makes you happy to some extent. Don't do anything, but you get what I'm saying. Don't feel like being angry over this type of stuff for 50 years on loop is activism. It's not activism. It's just, you know, you're getting exploited by media and politicians. Don't ruin your summer over this stuff. Appreciate y'all. I'll be out. Dream Rare Podcast. I had fun as always. Hope you did too. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me. Support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying. So I don't do it. Stayintouchwithme.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram, t.me/dreamrarechat or @dreamrarechat. Due to censorship, I post all my live stream and videos there. Sometimes I have some bonus content, and I try to give people a heads up when Facebook or YouTube won't. Dream Rare Chat at Telegram. My Instagram is @dreamrare. Thanks for everybody following there for shorter content. And dreamrarelinks.com, that's dreamrarelinks.com, has all my stuff. My podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, my music on Spotify and Apple, my Rumble page, my BitChute and Gab page. All my links are found at dreamrarelinks.com. Thanks for watching, folks. God bless you. You already know I'll be back with more content